Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an A330 pilot, and in today's video we are going to have a look at the LatinVFR Airbus A340. Now this one is obviously not a full-fledged study level simulation, but instead is an add-on meant for the entry level into the market, so that is what we are going to rate it against. It's available on Marketplace for just shy of 30 euros, and before we start we are going to have a quick look at the feature list of the add-on. So this is what the description of the add-on from Marketplace states, and so that is what we are going to rate it against. They do state that they have customized systems of the A340-300 simulating its basic cockpit functionalities. A little bit further down they say functionality in most of the basic systems, and they do advertise the cabin model, excellent flight dynamic resembling the 340-300, and a VNAV implementation together with a rather detailed electronic flight bag. So that is basically what we are looking at for today's video. Now, as mentioned, this is not a study level simulation, so this video does probably not apply to those of you who are just interested in the highest fidelity possible, but this one is a video that is a little bit more tailored towards the entry level into flight simulator add-ons. Alright then, so with that out of the way, you can see that we're on the outside model over here, and everything you see is actually part of the add-on itself. So things like the cargo loaders over here, things like the external power unit, that stuff all comes with the add-on. Now, before we are going to do a more detailed walk around, let's quickly head over into the cockpit and do the basic flight deck setup. Now this is what the cockpit of the LatinVFR A340 looks like. We're going to do a more detailed walk around over it later, so let's just step in for now and we are going to do the basic power up of our aircraft so that we are good to go for the walk around. So all the engine master levers are off, engine start selector is on, the weather radar is turned off, but basically only seems to have the mode button and the on-off button simulated. So just making sure that that is actually off. Okay, landing gear lever is down, the wipers are off, and well, this would be the point where we would check the voltage of the batteries, but looks like the window actually just stays black. This should be working regardless whether the plane is turned on or off. But, well, we'll not be able to check that then, it seems. Okay, so battery coming on. Okay, now we got the voltage indication. Yep, that's certainly something they need to fix. That needs to always be available. But it is more than 25.5 volts, that's the important thing. Okay, and external power is connected as well. Okay then. So, with that done, let's go ahead and do the APU fire test, which doesn't seem simulated. That's a pity, this would be standard operating procedure down here. But okay, so be it. Then we are just going to start the APU like that. So, 3 seconds, and off we go. Okay, cool. So the aircraft is now powering up. APU page has automatically been selected when the APU was selected. That is very good. Okay, so while that's powering up, we put the 3 ADRs into nav. Okay, cockpit lights as required. So on the A340 you don't have lights up there, you just have the integral light button only down here, which controls the overhead panel as well in comparison to the A320. So a little bit different system logic here. Okay, APU bleed is also coming on, and then we can do our EFB setup. Now the EFB is actually quite surprisingly well simulated in this aircraft for being an entry-level simulation. So you can see we do have Navigraph charts available in here. We have the ability to load up a Simbri flight plan in here. So let's just synchronize the latest plan once again, synchronize payload and synchronize fuel. And with that our aircraft is loaded up. And we can also show the operational flight plan in here, though the formatting seems to be a little bit erroneous here. There seems to be something wrong with the space signs and everything in here. Well, hopefully something they will be able to sort out soon. Okay, so apart from that, in the electronic flight bag, we do have charts, we do have checklists, which is quite cool. So that is pretty much the original Airbus checklists that you have in here, even including the departure change checklist. Quite cool. Okay, then apart from that, we do have a basic performance calculator down here for takeoff settings. Going further down, we have the ability to control our doors. For example, let's open, well, let's not make that 2 left, let's make that 4 left, and bring on some stairs over there as well, which is quite cool functionality over here. And last but not least, we do have our settings page where we can do stuff like basic Navigraph stuff, EFB units, and load a couple of panel states. So that is quite cool stuff that we have available, and we can even collect weather for certain airports. For example, here for Munich, let's get the meter, and here is our weather. Looks like an interesting wind component though. Probably confused by the variable winds. Well, in any case, something that I am going to report to the developers for fixing. Okay, so that's what we've got available in the electronic flight bag. Also, you can see it's already automatically synchronized the flight plan in here. But just to have a quick look over here, it's we do need to update that IRAC, it seems. It's IRAC date to date. But you can see that it has already automatically inserted the SimBrief flight plan, which really makes it nice and easy to set that FMS up. We're going to go over the full FMS setup procedure in a few moments. But in the meantime, suffice to say that we are, for now, fairly pleased with that. Making it as easy as possible for the new flight simmer, who doesn't really know their way around an Airbus FMS quite yet. Okay, so, then let's see. Our oxygen pressure is sufficient for the flight, hydraulic quantities are sufficient, and the oil quantities are okay as well. Now, something I did notice is that once a Honeycomb page is selected over here, apparently you cannot get out of it anymore. Like, normally just pressing it again, you should get back to the default page, relevant for the phase of flight. So on the ground, for example, that should be the door page. It's a bit of a pity that that stuff doesn't work, because that would be some basic Airbus functionality that I would basically expect in even an entry-level simulation. But I am going to suggest that to the LatinVFR developers to see if they can improve on that. Okay, so with that we are basically set up for the flight. Now, one thing that is worth pointing out over here is I do not have any actual A340 performance data available. But there is a profile for it available in SimBrief. Now, when you select that profile, then the airplane, or then SimBrief calculates with a fuel factor of plus 30%. In other words, the plane uses 30% more fuel than what SimBrief, or than what the default SimBrief profile would suggest it does. I am not sure if that is a shortcoming of the default SimBrief profile, or if that is indeed just the A340 using much more fuel than it should. If the latter is the case, then I do hope for an improvement. However, I do not have any A340 performance data here during or against which I could cross-check it. Okay, so that stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and go out for the walkaround to have a more detailed look at the outside model of the aircraft. We're going to start the walk-around ride over here at the static ports, and even going close up, I do have to say that these are some pretty good level textures over here. Of course, there could be a little bit higher detail textures over here. For example, there's all the rivets and all that kind of stuff missing, but I do hope that the airplane is, of course, not exactly made for that kind of detail level, because it does have to run on an Xbox and on the lower end computers. And well, if we are honest, as soon as we go to a decent distance from the aircraft, like this for example, then you don't really notice all that stuff anymore. Okay then, so coming up to the front again, we do have our pitot probes, tap probes, we have the ice detector probes down here, so all the probes that we're supposed to have are there. You can also see the AOA probe over there, even though I'm not 100% sure if the jetway, if it should be that close to the jetway. Just something looks off about that, though I can't tell you exactly what. Okay, from the front the airplane is looking fine, and then again we're looking at all those probes on the side over here, and we do have the 2 AOA vanes over here as well. Then moving on towards the back of the plane, that's the landing lights that you got right up here. Looks like just a 2D texture. Let's just go a bit closer up. Yeah, just a 2D texture there, no actual 3D model of the lights. Now something I do notice over here is that the slats, if you take a close look, are a little bit outside of the actual mounting over here. Now, they should actually be further outside. When the slats are retracted on the A340, they really have a little bit of a notable distance here between the fairing on the root of the wing and the actual slats, so that they actually should be a little bit further out. So they kind of simulate that, but could be a little bit more pronounced. They probably wanted to avoid bug reports from people who couldn't really believe it looked that way, and if I'm completely honest, the first couple of times I did the walkaround on the A330, which should be similar wing, I was kind of surprised by it as well and thought like, well, can this be? But yes, it can be. It is normal for the airframe. Okay, so quick look into the engine. That's the CFM56, the 5 APUs, as people do seem to call it. But we do have to say that the plane does not only climb by the Earth's gravity. Indeed, many pilots I've spoken to who have flown both the A330 and the A340 all say that the 340 actually climbed a little bit better than the A330. Obviously, it does play a role there that we do use quite a bit of climb thrust derate in the A330, but nonetheless. Okay, so look at the landing gear over here. That's actually some okay level of detail that we do see over here. We don't see the brake wear indicator pins, but apart from that, the landing gear itself is, well, looking a little bit strange over here, I have to say. I'm not sure if the A340 landing gear is different from the A330. The A330, I would expect them to go a little bit further to the right over here. That angle just strikes me a bit. But then again, that might very well be due to the fact that the A340 has an additional landing gear in the middle of the airframe, so it might be that the 340 is constructed a little bit different than the A330 is. I would not be surprised by that. Okay then, going on to the back of the airplane, let's actually have a quick look into that cargo hold. So, this is what it looks like. Couple of containers at the very entry, makes it look good, and well, doesn't consume too much of a performance, I would guess. Okay, quick look into the aft hold. Well, that's what it looks like. Okay, so coming on towards the aft end of the airplane then, we got the APU air intake located on the bottom over here, and then we do have well, look at that, we actually do have the static wick dischargers modeled. Didn't expect that for an entry-level model, but we do. Okay then, coming towards the back of the airplane, and well, this is basically what it looks like. So these are the stairs that are included with the A340 model. As you can see, they're of okay quality, I would say. So if we just about head up over here, then well, this is what the airplane does look from the inside. We're going to have a more detailed look at the interior modeling of the plane in a few moments when we are actually airborne and en route, but for now, suffice to say that there is a more detailed interior model available. Alright, getting out again, and just look at that beautiful 777 over there. Okay. Well, so the other side obviously is pretty much the same as this side, so we're just quickly going to finish up the walk around over here. You can see that there are no brake fans fitted to this airplane. These are just the standard. This is just the standard landing gear. Then over here, that thing you can see over here is the pot for the fuel dumping. Fuel dumping is actually simulated in this airplane, so we are going to have a look at that in a few moments when we are en route. Also worth just looking into the backside of the engine over here and the modeling that's done there. Now, I have only flown CFM56 engines on the 737, so I can't tell you for sure if they should look the very same on the A340, but sure enough, the nacelles of the engines here do look a little bit more stretched than they do on the 737. But then again, that might very well just be due to it being a different airframe, even though it's both CFM56 engines. Okay, so that much for our outside look. Now I'm just going to switch it to one different camera angle, and that is the standard outside camera angle. Because obviously we did have a very close look at the airplane just now, and that was much closer than what people would be using in most situations. So for that reason, let's just go outside here for a second, and well, good thing we've got such and they managed to clip us. Okay, congratulations. Well, in any case, obviously this is more like a standard point of view for the airplane, and we do have to say the model does look pretty good from this point of view over here. Okay, so that much about the outside model of the A340. Now let's go inside, and we are going to have a little bit closer look at the plane as we run our pre-flight procedures. Okay, so starting on the overhead panel then, we should make sure the oxygen crew supply and the cockpit voice recorder ground control buttons are on. Unfortunately, those don't seem to be simulated over here, which is a little bit of a pity. We go further up, make sure that the there are no white lights, and make sure that the emergency evacuation switch is in the captain's only position. It is by default, but just to let you know, this one does not have a click spot. You cannot move this button. Okay then, the fuel jettison is guarded, and just to give you an idea, you can actually arm that one, and you can also activate it. Don't want to do it on the ground, of course. Alright then, so the flight control prim 1, sec 1 are guarded, and we can move further up. Cockpit door backup system is in on, and cockpit video is on. Perfect. ELT is armed. Then moving down to the middle of the overhead, strobe light auto, nav and logo light position number 1. Seatbelts on, no smoking signs on. Emergency lights should not be on, they should be in the arm position. Unfortunately, that is not simulated. That's really something I do hope they are going to change. So this should be in the armed position, not in the on position. Similarly, the dome light controls up here don't seem to be simulated. I can't click that switch. Obviously, for night flights, that is something that really should be there. So hopefully that is going to be added. Now, funnily enough, the switch for the general brightness is controlling the dome light, it seems. Well, that is not exactly how the real plane would work. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the cruise. Alright, apart from that, however, the air conditioning system is looking good. Getting up to the fuel pumps. Now, in here you can see you've got 2 pumps per side, and that is a primary pump and a standby pump. Now, when the standby pump is on and the primary pump is off, then the standby pump is just going to start running. Technically speaking, it's the same fuel pump, so it's the same physical units that you got installed there. Just 2 different pumps, of course. But nonetheless, we want to avoid the standby pump from running, and therefore we are always going to turn on the primary pump first, and when we switch them off at the end of the flight, we're going to switch off the standby pump first, so that the standby pump is never on when the primary pump is off. Like this. Okay then, hydraulic is all guarded. Now next up we would do the engine fire test. Unfortunately, that one is not simulated either. Okay, going on then to the other end side. Everything is guarded. We make sure that the cooling is set as needed. On the no-top you would get information about what kind of temperatures you would need for the cargo hold, in case you've got special freight on board. Well, and that's it. A quick word up here on those little buttons that you can see. Those are not circuit breakers like many people seem to think. the A340 does not have circuit breakers in the cockpit. Indeed, those are reset switches, and they kind of serve a similar function as circuit breakers would for pilots in flight, aka if something breaks, you pull the CB and push it back in, but not on the A330 or A340. All circuit breakers are located in the avionics bay, and therefore you have that circuit breaker page up here, and if anything is popped, it's just going to tell you over here. The reason they did it like this is because you are not allowed to reset any circuit breakers in flight. Okay, so that much about this part of the system. Now, going down to the FCU, there's not really much we can actually set up over here right now. Initial climb is going to be flight level 70, and that's it. Okay, then getting further down, the date, well, unfortunately we're not able to check that. That's a little bit of a pity there. And unfortunately we don't have any QNH reading on the standby attitude indicator. That's, well, not exactly correct. Well, can we control it by changing the standard setting though? No. Okay, in that case I'll just have to press B to adjust the altimetry setting over here. That's a little bit of a pity. That certainly shouldn't be like that. But okay, then going further down here, park and brake is set. Well, that's interesting. The video camera switch is set to the cockpit entry position, but we don't get any indication on the ECAM. I mean, just set this to the off position without the entry selection done here, and then you just would have correct indications. But when you put the switch to the cockpit entry position, obviously you should see the cameras on the ECAM. But okay. Well then, transponder. Can switch that off for now, and squawk 2000. Ooh, that's interesting. A little click spot mismatch there. Okay, squawk 2000. Now, in regards to the TCAS, not really sure why they make those standard settings to TARA and to thread. Now, just put it to all, and, well, simulate the TCAS switch, really. In any case, the altitude report switch should be on, and, well, the mode selector just goes to standby on the ground. Okay, cool. Then let's get on with the FMS pre-flight. So it has already automatically inserted the route when we clicked on the where is it? We clicked down here on the Synchronize Flight Plan button. That basically synchronized our SimBrief flight plan into the FMS, making things about as easy as they get. Now, let's go on from there. Small thing I do notice as I come across it is the call sign up here is not correct. Now, flight number Lufthansa 093 is correct, but the call sign, if we have a look at the flight plan, should be 9 X-Ray Victor. So it looks like it did not actually synchronize that. You can see LH93 is correct, but the call sign would be 9 X-Ray Victor, and well, it apparently did not consider that. And the flight number in here, 340, well, that was not synchronized then, it seems. Okay, so Lufthansa 9 X-Ray Victor, we'll put that in here. Our alternate is going to be Düsseldorf. Cost index 30, cruising at flight level 240 is correct. Then onto the flight plan, Munich 26 right. We do have the give me departure in here. So 26 right and give me 1 November. Interestingly enough, it already had those waypoints in here. So that's a little bit confusing that it had those waypoints by default already. Probably took them over from the standard arrival. You can see that down here, that our Debbie star is also included already, even though it doesn't say so on here. So on the left side, next to the waypoint names, on top of those, you should have the name of the SID, the airway, the star, the transition, and so on. But we do seem to have the constraints in here. So they do say there is some sort of a VNAV system, and the constraints actually do exist. Okay, well, in that case, I just want to check if we can actually enter a speed restriction as well. So Delta Mike... Wait a moment, did it go to lateral? Okay, that's a bug there. So When you click the left LSK next to a waypoint, you should go to the lateral revision. When you click the right LSK, you should go to vertical revision. And over there, you should be able to enter constraints like speed constraints, altitude constraints, and so on. So that's a little bit of a bug in there. And actually one that for an airplane that is advertised to have a VNAV system, I would kind of hope not to be there. But let's see, can we at least enter constraints manually then? 250. No. Okay, well that's a pity. For an airplane that is advertised to have a VNAV system, I would really expect to be able to enter constraints. Okay. Well, so be it. Secondary flight plan is not simulated, unfortunately. Nothing on the rat navs. Munich 26. Right, going into here. Is that also not... Oh, come on. This is basic Airbus functionality. So normally you would... And this would be so easy to simulate, you know? You have the present position, just take any other waypoint and then bearing and distance. That's really basic stuff. That's really basic Airbus stuff. Okay then, so init page has automatically been filled out, though I don't think that this is actually correct, at least not for what we should have loaded. Because if we synchronize that payload once again, on the load sheet, what do we have? Zero fuel weight 156.988, so basically 157 tons. So it looks like the zero fuel weight in here is actually not correct. Let's make that 157. And the block fuel, well, let's just load up a little bit extra there anyway. So where could we do that again? Over here. Okay. Or not. Where can we manually adjust the fuel? Do we really have to do that through the dialog? Seems like it. Well, that's a pity. Okay, fuel load, kilogram. Let's just load a little bit more than standard. Here you go, 16.3. So, how's the fuel tank distribution now? Let's just check that. Well, okay. Interesting that we do get the warnings about the center tank fuel pumps. Those obviously should be green. Okay, well, so be it. Interesting, we're able to call up the cruise page on the ground. That shouldn't happen. Okay, well. We'll just keep it at that. Okay, so let's do a little bit of takeoff calculations then. So we'll just synchronize that good stuff. Config 1 is probably going to be correct. No anti-ice, no air conditioning. So airport data, we are going to go for Munich. And the runway 26, right? The rest of that stuff will be automatic. I don't really get why the elevation is given in meters though. Would only make sense to have that in feet. Maybe that's something they can improve for a future version. And synchronize the weather. UNH 954 hectopascals. What? It's 1007. And that elevation over here definitely is correct. Okay, I have no clue what it's doing here. $1007. Enter. Okay, the rest of the stuff seems to be more or less correct. So here we go. Flaps 1, 33, 33, 52. And the flex temperature is actually not given in here. It inserted something automatically, 51. I'll tell you what, we're just going to keep that. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually is more or less correct for these conditions. Okay, and 152. Right, we'll keep the reduction in acceleration. Engine out acceleration is incorrect though. We don't want to accelerate directly on our field elevation. We'll insert 3000. We can't. Okay. Alright, so climb page is okay. and the rest of it we will just deal with when we're in flight. Alright, last thing there, looking at the FMAs, that lever MCT there, that should certainly not be there. Not 100% sure where that comes from. But okay. Well, that's strange, that should not be there. Like lever MCT, it should only say that when it wants the thrust levers in the MCT position. But it shouldn't. Okay, well, I suppose we'll have to deal with that. Okay, so, are you ready for the takeoff briefing then? That's an Airbus. The pilot monitoring is going to start with it. Okay, Munich 26 right, give me 1 November departure, climbing flight level 70, MSA 3700, and in terms of extra fuel and time, what do we have there? Ew, not simulated via the... Okay. No calculations done there, okay. Well, we did take a little bit of extra fuel, some 5-6 minutes, something around that. Okay, so I don't have any hotspots for the planned taxi. Stop margin for the rejected takeoff is 1,000 meters. Engine out sits straight at 25 miles, and an immediate return is possible. We are below the maximum landing weight, so we can come back straight away if we need to. I don't have anything special or non-standard. What threats do you see for the departure? Well, none. I do agree. Okay, briefing complete. Cockpit preparation checklist, please. Gear pins and covers removed. Fuel quantity 16,272 kilos. Seatbelts on. ADIRS. Let's see if they simulate that page. Yes, they do. Nav. Great. Okay, and barrel reference QNH 1007. Cockpit preparation checklist complete. Alright, so feedback at the end of this flight phase. It is a rather basic interpretation of the Airbus, but then again, there are quite a couple of good features in here, like that you can preload the flight plan into the FMS from the tablet. So there are certainly some good ideas in here. And I tend to say for, you know, entry-level flight simmers, that is probably most of what they need. Okay then, external powers are disconnected. Can't talk to the ground crew here, unfortunately. But well, we'll just do it through the menus then. Okay, so GPU can go. You can also remove the luggage and close the doors. Also remove that jetway, please. Excellent. Okay, so seeing that this airplane is made for Xbox, well, kinda, we are going to go for the pushback function that's included in here. So let's see, did they automatically call for a tuck now? Doesn't look like it, but it might have been GSX that just removed the tuck. Because I did have one here earlier, then I used GSX just to see if that works. Prior to starting the recording, you can still see the cones in place down here, and that obviously removed the standard ground equipment, so might be just a little bit of GSX interference here, even though we don't plan to use it. Okay, in any case, let's go ahead and... Just one thing there, services. The ground power has been removed, but we still see them available up here. Would be nice if they could change that. Of course, obviously we can't start the pushback with the ground power still connected. I do hope that that's something they're going to correct with the future version. Okay, so then let's go for the pushback over here. Cockpit to ground, go ahead. Please confirm, doors and hatches closed, ground equipment removed, and bypass pin is installed. That's all confirmed, Captain, and we're ready for pushback. Roger, clear the push, facing north, parking brake released. Roger, start of the push. Huh, that's interesting. It looks like... Is it waiting for a tuck now? Could it really be that our little usage of GSX earlier has actually broken it? Okay, in that case... Oh, GSX is not working anymore either. That's lovely again. Well, luckily we have another pushback tool. Let's see, can we call a tuck with this one? No. Well, now it says disconnect tuck. Okay, I don't care. We are just going to do it that way now. So we will just use Aerosoft's Toolbar Pushback Pro. Okay, so parking brake is off. Start pushback, please. Oh, come on, 3 pushback tools and we can't push back? What is that about? Is that the airplane now that's broken something, or is it something different? Huh. If we disconnect the tuck, then all of a sudden the pushback works. Okay. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to know about it. Just give me the before start checklist, please. So, park and brake. Released, and that's an interesting looking pushback, just to say so. Takeoff speeds and thrust. I will just try to gently play over this. So, V1, 133, VR, 133, V2, 152, flex temperature, 51. Windows. Closed, beacon on, before start checklist complete. Very interesting looking pushback. Okay, I've had it. Thank you. Just hold that, please. Cancel. I have no clue what just happened. I have really no clue. Okay, ground. Engine starts in sequence 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll start with engines 1 and 2. Now, once the engine start select is put to ignition, we should get green numbers over here. Otherwise, we would not be allowed to start the engines. Looks like that's not simulated. Well, starting engines 1 and 2. I tried to press the chrono button here in order to time the engine start. It's not required on the A340, but, you know, would have been nice if we could have done that. But looks like the chrono button is not simulated. That's basic Airbus. And that's certainly something they should add for a future version. That would really, really be good. I mean, they don't have the timer in here as well. All they have seems to be the elapsed timer. I do see a little bit of potential for improvement there, just to get that out straight away. Okay, well, that looks like more or less a good start on engines 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and start number 3 and 4. So, engine start does take a little while here. Let's look at the idle values, 2, 4, 6, well, and a little bit more fuel flow. The engines are uprated a little bit compared to my lovely 737 CFM56 engines, so I wouldn't be surprised if that is more or less correct. What does surprise me though is that we have a rather high N2 already, but the N1 is still rather low, so the relationship between N1 and N2 on the engine start doesn't seem to be exactly correct. Okay, so we have forward starts, clear disconnect. Show me the sign please, on the left side with a pin. Have a wonderful day. Okay, so for the trim, we've got 32.5. Now, let's have a look at that trim gauge down here. So 32 is over here, 32.5 gotta be somewhere over here then. Remember, you always set the trim according to the center of gravity in Airbus aircraft and not according to the number over here. So, yes, technically speaking, there should be a trimmable horizontal stabilizer setting, so a trim setting here next to the flaps, but, you know, don't really use it. You just take the CG from the ECAM, and from there you are going to set it based on the scale down here. Okay. So, then let's go ahead with the after start checklist, please. Anti-ice, off, ecom status, check, pitch trim, 32.5, rudder trim, neutral, after start checklist complete. Alright, let's go and see how the airplane is going to handle. Clear on the right side, clear on the left side, park and brake is off. Well, taxi. Small word here, the default viewpoint is pretty low. It should be more something like this, which, as you can see, greatly enhances the forward visibility. Okay, so why does the plane not taxi? Do we need that much thrust, or is there something still broken with the pushback tool? I would absolutely not be surprised. Disconnect, please. Stop pushback. Okay. That may obviously help. Let's give it a second try. That looks better. Okay, brake check. Well, let's stop for a moment. So we do still get a brake pressure indication down here. That should not be there. It should be 0. Because as soon as the engines are started, the brake system should no longer use the alternate brakes, but should be using the primary brake system, and the triple indicator down here shows us the alternate brakes. So for that reason we should not get any indication there. Just to be sure, parking brakes are not set, are they? Now they're set. Now they're released. Okay, so this is incorrect. We certainly shouldn't see any brake pressure there. Okay then, so on the taxi out, let's do the flight control track. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral. And, well, the pedal disconnect button is not simulated, so just a quick check of the rudder. Yeah, it is responding. Okay. Then, where is the 320 going up there? Just gotta make sure that we're not running into anything. I wouldn't be surprised if the AI is using runway 08 rather than runway 26. In the real world, they are using runway 26 as of this recording. Oh yeah, look at that. There's a guy approaching runway 08. Okay, well, we are going to ignore those. We are just going to go to runway 26. We'll just try to keep things realistic. Okay, a little bit of braking here. No more than 10 knots going through the turn. And here we go. A little bit of oversteering technique is needed in order to get the airplane around the turn. That is correct as it is. Also, it looks like we are losing a little bit of speed in the turn. That's also correct. If you make them too tight, then the aircraft can really stop in the turns, but you really got to make them almost full input for that. As long as you take it reasonable, the airplane should go through turns just about fine. Okay then, I don't have any changes to the takeoff briefing. Everything stays exactly as it is. So, that looks okay to me. Default page should be the engine page now. Alright, taxi checklist. Flight controls, checked. Flap setting, conv 1 plus F. Radar and predictive wind shear, on and auto. Engine start selector, norm, ECAM memo, takeoff no blue. Taxi checklist complete. Okay, so my general feeling on the first impression of the taxi model is that the plane does start to roll pretty quickly. Then again, we're at a very light weight today. We do have a full load of passengers, 277 on board, but if you look at the amount of fuel on board, then obviously that is close to nothing. So in general, we're at a very, very light weight. Indeed, looking at the weight down here, 172.8, I've almost had that as zero fuel weight in the A330, which is the smaller version of the plane. Or rather, 2 engines less, aka 2 times so many tons left hanging under the wings. Apart from that, similar airframe. And of course a landing gear less, which also adds a lot of weight. But nonetheless, the overall taxi model, this one does seem to very slowly decelerate. Now, I'm not sure about the idle thrust on the A340. On the 330 you have so much idle that the plane just accelerates on idle even at maximum takeoff weight. So I would kind of have expected the same for the 340, but well, it may or may not be correct. So if you guys have seen any other videos of the real plane where you see its correct behavior, then do let me know in the comments below. All I can say is the A340-600, again which has different engines, in X-plane does accelerate slightly on idle. On the other hand side, we do have to mention that the plane is more or less holding its speed with idle power right now, so that is not exactly incorrect either. Well, the taxi model seems somewhat believable to me, let's put it that way. Now, the only thing that I would like to see improved in regards to the taxi model is the default viewpoint, which, like this, is just very low. You can see how much of a cutoff angle there is in front of the plane, so how little you can see in front of your aircraft. Apart from that, the oversteering technique seems to work pretty much in a similar way to how I use it on the A330. The airframe has the same length, A340-300 to A330-300, so that seems to be quite correct for me. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and do our lineup procedures. So this is where we would put the TCAS on now. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. And this is also when we would turn the packs off. Interestingly enough, the pack buttons are not clickable here. However, on the takeoff performance calculator, we can actually select that. So if they don't simulate the packs, then maybe they should remove that option over here or just constantly force it on. Okay, anyway, lineup checklist please. So, takeoff runway. 26 right, full length, TCAS. Well, not simulated. Packs 1 and 2, on. Lineup checklist complete. Okay, Airbus does want us to do a standing takeoff, not a rolling takeoff, on the wide bodies. So, let's bring it to a standstill. Are you ready? Oh, interesting, that killed the auto brake. Wait a moment, let me try that again. Look at that, maximum manual braking disconnects the auto brake. That should of course not happen. Only with the low and the medium position you can disconnect them with brake pedal usage, not with the maximum position. Okay, so it's armed again. We make sure that we don't break it. Okay. So, ready to go? The brake is off. Take off. Manflax 51. There should certainly be an SRS over here. Runway, A thrust blue. Thrust set. 100 knots. Checked. Oh, the nose is rotating on its own. I have to push forward to prevent that. Rotate. Positive climb. Gear up. So it should be about 12.5 degrees of pitch for the A340. And it should not accelerate with that. Now we have SRS mode at least, but no nav mode. Interesting. Okay, let's just give it a direct automic 060, because I don't like that left turn that it's commanding here. Okay, insert that direct, please. Thrust climb, and the rest of the FMAs is gone. All this is interesting now. Okay, open climb heading. Autopilot. Where is it turning? Hello, you're in heading mode. Okay, nav. Let's see what's gonna happen this time. And you're in open climb, you need to pitch down, my friend. Hello, pitch down, please. No? Well, that's a bit problematic now. Does it level off at least? Open descent. Interesting. And it does not fly the level off. Well, I have no idea what it's doing now. Let's try to reset that system. Autopilot off. So let's set our cruising altitude to 24,000. Flight directors off. Flight directors on. Open climb. Okay, doesn't engage nav, then let's go to heading. Autopilot 1, flap 0. So now we just needed to actually follow the route, please. And now it's in nav mode again. Interestingly enough, the autopilot does not follow the flight director. And interestingly enough, it tells me there are VNAV constraints, which certainly there are not. Okay, 10,000. You should accelerate now. The target went up nicely, but it does not pitch the airplane. I have a feeling the autopilot's pitch mode is just completely lost. You can see that here when I try to manage the climb, it just goes blank. That should be impossible. But even in open climb, it doesn't follow it. Does it do vertical speed at least? Yes. Though a little bit aggressive. Okay, well, looks smooth outside. Seatbelt's going off. So, approaching the first turn, and, well, it does follow the turn. That's something at least. Okay, set standard. No click spot to just set standard on the standbys. So, well, we'll just leave it where it is. Okay, standard cross checked on the primary altimeters, passing level 116.6. Now, checked. So the departure phase was a little bit disappointing over here. For an airplane that is designed for the very new flight simmer, I would definitely have expected more. Like, the airplane should at least be able to, you know, do an automatic climb, follow the route automatically, stuff like that. Just look at this now. I'm trying to go back into open climb, but just seems to maintain the vertical speed we previously commanded. And even though it says thrust climb up here, it's reducing power to maintain speed. That is, of course, completely incorrect behavior. Well, let's do vertical speed, see what's gonna happen. What is this? Vertical speed plus 2000 versus vertical speed 1900. Can it do 1500 and maintain the speed? To a certain extent, it seems. But looks like there is a huge disconnection between what the autopilot is actually doing versus what we do on the FCU. That is, well, not optimal to say at least. Okay, well, we've programmed the airplane for more or less doing what we wanted to do. Now, let's see a little bit of the positives here. People say the A340 only climbs due to the Earth's curvature, and while that is correct to a certain extent, you can see that we are still getting like 1500 feet a minute with the engines running in climb thrust, even though, looking at this, climb thrust 82.9, engines running at 91.4. That's, of course, they shouldn't run higher than the rating shown up here. Well, in any case, we can more or less get 1500 feet a minute out of the aircraft here, and that does seem to be a rather realistic value for the A340-300. So, those numbers do seem to look okay in my opinion, in terms of the flight model itself. After takeoff, we needed a little bit higher pitch than what I would have anticipated. Normal should be like 12.5 degrees for the A340, but of course that is assuming that you've set the correct takeoff thrust, and since we were unable to calculate our D rate, well, I'm not sure if we had correct takeoff thrust. But okay, that much about it, and now we need to help ourselves with vertical speed mode, because both the climb and the open climb mode seems to be inoperative, and that is really something that concerns me there. Like, the airplane should absolutely have the capability to use both climb and open climb mode. It is advertised to have VNAV, so I do expect climb mode to work, and open climb should work in any case. So those are definitely things that they have to fix. And in my opinion, those are things that should not be in a public release. Because it just makes life hard, you know? I know my way around the autopilot because I'm using that thing in the real world every couple of days. But the average flight simmer, especially the average simmer who just made their entry to the market, so the core customer base for which this airplane is intended, they probably don't know their way around the autopilot. So they would probably encounter problems with the airplane just not doing what they wanted to do, and they would probably not know how to go for alternative modes, like vertical speed mode, in order to more or less get the airplane to fly what they wanted to fly. And that is a problem. That makes the plane very hard to use for the standard entry-level flight simmer whom this airplane is made for. And that is a problem. But okay. We do hope that those things can be fixed with updates later on. So let's continue having a look around the airplane. A few things in the cockpit over here, a couple of nice animations on the window shades. As you can see, they're all operational. Now, in case you're wondering, yes, this is usually how we actually fly in the long-haul Airbuses. You really need to keep good care of your eyes as a pilot, and on the outside it's so bright usually that if you expose your eyes to that for too long, you are eventually going to get real problems with your vision. For that reason, we usually keep all the sunshades down during flight. Now, let's also take the opportunity real quick to have a quick look around the cabin and see what the cabin looks like. So, here's our front galley. We do actually have the flight attendant panel, that's quite nice. And, well, looking around, you can kind of guess the level of detail for yourself. What I did notice is a couple times here the airline logo seems a little bit, well, to be somewhere where it's not supposed to be. Business class actually does seem to be Lufthansa inspired. I'm not 100% sure, I haven't checked any of the other liveries, but this actually is what a Lufthansa business class looks like. So that is quite cool. Maybe they got inspired by the actual Lufthansa business class, or maybe it is just the model they chose. But in any case, this is okay looking cabin. Also nice view outside, nice wing flags that you can see over here. So in terms of visuals from the cabin, do notice that little glass effect here and that dirt when I'm moving my viewpoint around. You can actually see some dirt on the glass, that's pretty cool. Okay then, let's move a little bit further backwards, and for some reason I'm getting stuck over here. So it looks like there are quite some invisible walls in here. I can move over the seats, but when I'm trying to move in the aisle, that is causing me quite some problems. Okay, so getting up to the premium economy class then, and this is what it looks like. Again, quite okay in terms of details, but it's pretty much like a Lufthansa premium economy. And a pretty nice view from here. The view is certainly nice. Okay then, let's move a little bit further back. Unfortunately I do have to move over the seats here. And this is the standard economy class in the A340. So you can see you've got a 2-4-2 layout, 2 seats on the sides, 4 in the middle, 2 on the sides, and that is indeed what the A330, A340, basically the first generation of Airbus long-haul wide-body aircraft looks like. It is just a bit of a pity that I have to move along the side over here. Now let's just explore the end of the cabin there, because this is where the A340 gets a little bit special. You can see how the plane gets a lot more narrow towards the end, and that's why when you get towards the back of the plane, the middle seats reduce from 4 seats down towards 3 seats. I do have to say though that they are giving a lot of leg room over here. That's really neat for passengers. Though I doubt that many airlines would configure the airplane like that. Oh, there is an IFE system in the seats over here, but of course nothing clickable. So this is just what it looks like. And looking over here, this is definitely a Lufthansa setup. So that's definitely been customized for the livery. Neat. From the back of the plane, nice look outside. And you can actually see the heat blur effect from the engines over here. Okay, so that is pretty much what our aircraft looks like in the back over here. Let's go all the way back to the cockpit. And here we are. So, odd star, leveling off in cruise. Let's see then, where is our top of descent? Is there a top of descent? No, there isn't. I thought this plane has VNAV. All truth. They do advertise that at least. Well, let's go outside and enjoy the views. And just to be sure that I didn't mess up completely, quick look into the feature list once more. It definitely has VNAV implementation standing on there, but I don't see any of that. Nothing. On the more positive side, you can actually see the sunshades from the outside, and something I really like is how they look white from the outside, and they indeed do on the real airplane. You know, looking at it from the inside, they're definitely not white. They, well, in our aircraft have more like a yellowish tone. On this one they have more of this, well, brown tone. But from the outside they look white. And the reason is that the whitish color does actually reflect the sunlight better. So that's not a bug, it's a feature. By the way, talk about features once again. The vertical speed should be dashed on the FCU right now, because obviously the airplane is in altitude hold mode, and I should not be able to... Oh no, what's it doing now? Come on. Please go back in alt cruise. Well, this is interesting. Alt is blue, we are exactly at the altitude, and it doesn't capture. Well, no comment. Definitely no comment. Okay then, let's see about our weather. We're looking for the weather in Frankfurt, please. So, 160 at 5, 1006, 16 degrees. Broken clouds in 1300, becoming scattered in 1300, okay. So let's have a look at the charts then. Frankfurt, and I would like my arrival. Actually, I tell you what, we'll go for the approach charts straight away, because without working VNAV, it kind of takes the fun out of it. Okay, so runway should be 25 left. Minimum's 561. Let's do a quick setup over here. No missed approach routing is the first thing I notice. Okay, RadNav page. We don't really need anything. We can't enter the landing runway in here. That's a pity. Okay, so 1006, 17 degrees, 160 at 5. And the minimum's 561. We don't seem to be able to select the landing configuration. Now, flaps 3 landings are actually pretty common for us. Actually, I pretty much always do them. So it's a bit of a pity that we can't select this. Now, in case this does get implemented in a future version, just a little bit of background information for you guys here. The A340 does not have a GPW as a landing flap selection. They have gotten rid of that A320 feature, and instead, when you select the landing config in the FMS, the GPWS is automatically going to adapt. Okay, well, tell you what, let's go ahead and start our descent, please. So, open descent. Nope, that autopilot is not working. It should have gone to thrust idle. Let's see what happens though if I do that manually. I accidentally hit my flap click spot. My apologies for that. The overspeed you just heard was me hitting the flap click spot. That was not to blame on the aircraft. But looks like open descent does not work. Okay. Well, vertical speed minus 2000, off we go. This is a pity. I mean, this should be so much better. I'm wondering why this stuff isn't working though. On the A330, when I tested it half a year ago, it actually worked rather fine. So my impression on the A330 was a lot better than it is now on the A340. That is a bit of a pity. Okay, come on engines, you gotta go back to idle now. What's it? Why did we get a speed FMA without the auto thrust? Oh god. This is strange. This is really strange. Not how the plane is supposed to work. Unfortunately, because the model is looking okay. But those autopilot modes here, they really start driving me crazy. Okay, nonetheless, let's not get ourselves too worried here, but let's instead go ahead and test another system. So they did say the fuel dumping system does work. So let's go ahead and test the fuel dumping system. So, jettison arm, jettison active. Okay, fuel jettison on. And now, on the fuel prediction page, we should be able to select the final amount of fuel we want to have on board. But looks like that stuff is not working. Okay. Well, so let's have a look at how much it's actually jettisoning now. Should be something like 1 ton per minute. So let's just watch that for a moment and see how much we lose. We should be losing approximately 1,000 kilos a minute, so let's see about it. From the outside, there is a visual animation. That is okay. But the rate at which fuel is reduced here is definitely not correct. Is there any difference in the jettisoning rate at all? Let's turn that off again. Let's keep monitoring the fuel. It just goes down at the very same rate. I mean, is it just a visual effect? Or what is it actually? Interestingly enough, using the all button down here, which you can normally use to cycle through the different ecam pages, that way you can get onto the cruise page, which is interesting. The cruise page is normally what should open when you deselect any of the other ecam modes. Okay, let's go into a heading here. Let's turn towards the final. Heading 330. We'll also put the fasten belts on. And then direct to Delta Foxtrot 680. Let's see if it can do it radial in. No, it cannot. Okay, set QNH. QNH 1006 cross-checked, passing 12.5 now. Why does it say QFE though? Did we select QFE for landing? Why? And most importantly, how can I deselect that? Okay, a little bit of a downwind here. And let's reduce that vertical speed so that the plane can decelerate. Ah, okay, QNH, that's better. Interesting, so by pushing it again, you can switch between QFE and QNH. Well, that's interesting. The aircraft I fly are not equipped with that feature, that's why I was a little bit puzzled about it for a few moments. Okay then, passing 10,000. Lights on, LS. GPS primary, high accuracy. And the mode selector is in norm. Okay, back into the descent. Now in idle thrust, the plane should give us somewhere less than 1500 feet a minute. So let's see, if I select 1500, what kind of thrust setting are we going to get? In the meantime, let's do the approach checklist, please. Barrel ref, QNH 1006, seatbelts on, minimum, MDA 561, auto brake. Yeah, let's go for auto brake low. Engine start cell, norm, approach checklist complete. Okay, so we've seen enough of the automation here. Let's go for a little bit of manual flight, please. That's interesting. I turn the autopilot off and it changes from vertical speed to open descent. Shouldn't do that. And with the flight directors off, obviously we should not get any FMA. Does it have bird mode? Yes, it does. Okay, cool. Okay, let's go ahead and start turning towards the final. And then let's explore the manual flight physics of the LatinVFR A340 a bit. They did advert us that they should have some rather accurate flight dynamics. If you have a look at the feature transfer list down there, you can see that it does say excellent flight dynamics that resemble the Airbus A340-300, characteristics, power management, fuel system, etc. So let's go ahead and check out how excellent those flight dynamics are. We'll just do a little bit of a maneuvering here. I'll take a perspective like this where you can actually see my side stick movements. So let's just try to do a very shallow controlled rate of descent here, 1000 feet a minute. You can see I'm doing very small side stick inputs there. Come on. But it's very hard to actually control the pitch correctly. It does seem rather sensitive again. Okay, well. Let's actually try 2000 feet a minute once again. But the plane seems to be pretty harsh in its response. Like, it's very hard to actually control it accurately. Let's roll wings level. Now here's something interesting when rolling the aircraft. If you look at my side stick input, I'm just now going to move my physical side stick from the neutral position at a constant speed to a fully deflected position. Watch at what the side stick is doing here. This is constant speed movement on my physical stick. The last part is getting really aggressive here. And that makes it kind of hard to actually control the airplane correctly, or rather to control it precisely. It does seem like it needs a lot of control inputs. So a pretty strong sensitivity might be what you need to fly this aircraft. Apart from that, as soon as I add thrust manually, auto thrust seems to go into speed mode, which is not correct. Shouldn't do that. I'm just pressing the auto thrust disconnect buttons here, and what's most strange is you get speed mode indicated here, but there is no auto thrust indication on the FMA. I mean, that is why? Just why? And the next question then would be, why don't we get any ILS indications? Okay, let's see if we can recreate another important characteristics of the A340 flight dynamics. We'll go flaps 1, take it all the way down to the S speed, and then see what kind of pitch we need in order to maintain altitude. We should be looking at something about 9 or 10 degrees pitch. But what is it doing here? The S speed seems to be really low. Look at that, the S speed is within the VLS band. That is not correct. Over here it shows us 185 for the S speed. Why is it not showing on the PFD? Okay, come on Airbus, that is basic stuff. Just like we should have a much higher pitch here as well. Okay, well. ILS 25 left. Well, should be triple 1.15. Okay, now we get an ILS indication, so it looks like auto-tune is not working. And now we also get the correct pitch, but just look at the speed over here. It's long within the VLS band. It's definitely not correct behavior. Well, let's go selected speed 180 for now. Or what's the S speed supposed to be? Didn't I activate the approach phase? 185. So let's maintain 185. Okay, so let's turn the flight director on again. Approach mode armed, with lock captured, glide slope blue. Interestingly, it should have gone to lock star first, of course. Okay, back to standard flight director, please. Where's my glide slope mode? Glide slope has just vanished. Also look at this, we're in config 1, following the glide slope and it's actually losing speed. That shouldn't happen. It should maintain speed at best. Especially seeing that we don't have a real headwind here. Okay, open climb that is. Why did the approach mode deactivate? Okay, this is bugged as well. And why is the managed speed 185 now? What is this plane doing? Okay, something is really broken here. Let's get rid of those flight directors again. No clue why we are getting an FMA right now. We definitely shouldn't. So approach speed 141.
2,500.
Checked. Flaps 2. Speed check.
2,500.
You've said that already, my friend. Okay, gear down. Flaps 3. It's losing speed so quickly. Really shouldn't lose speed that quickly. Man, what's it doing? I thought they said it has excellent flight dynamics. Because this really doesn't have a lot to do with... Oh boy.
$2,000.
Okay, landing checklist, econ memo, landing no blue. Landing checklist complete. Pretty hard to control it on the final here because of the large pitch inputs that it gives. It's just very, very hard to make a precise pitch control. And talk about the pitch. The pitch that we get on final here is not correct either. You should be looking at something about 2.5 or 3 degrees of pitch on the approach using flaps full and about 5 degrees with flaps 3. The almost zero pitch that we get over here is certainly not correct. Tracked. Okay, let's have a bit of fun. Let's fly the visual approach to runway 25 center. It is rather late for the swing over, but why not? Whoopsie, that was me kicking my desk.
500.
Checked. And we're just about stable by 500.
400.
That looks good to me.
$300. 100 above.
Checked. I'm really trying to make small pitch inputs here, but you can see how my speed is, or how my pitch is just going up and down and up and down. That is
minimum.
Really... Continue. That's not how you should fly an airplane, and that is definitely not how the 340 would behave.
100. 50.
So,
40.
pitch it up
30.
at 40. For real? It just has no inertia?
10. Retard. Retard. Retard.
Well, that was okay. One spoiler? Really? Okay, let's deploy manually. Reverse green, decel. Well, that's quite a bit of a deceleration rate here. Okay, well, welcome to Frankfurt, I guess. Okay, we'll make a right-hand turn onto Lima, and then we'll, before doing the after-landing procedures, we will quickly discuss the approach phase and the entire descent. Okay, runway vacated. We'll stop the airplane here for a moment and just make a quick feedback on the arrival phase here. So, basically, the plane is advertised to have VNAV, but simply nothing worked of the VNAV. Nothing. Likewise, any autopilot mode except for vertical speed did not work. So no glide slope mode, no open descent, no descent. Which is basic stuff that it is advertised to have, but nothing of that works. Only vertical speed mode did. Then let's talk about the flight dynamics. They do say it has excellent flight dynamics. I disagree about that. The rate of descent you're getting in idle thrust is much too high. And the way the plane feels both in pitch and in bank is just not accurate. That is not how an A340 flies. Well, for the approach we had to tune the ILS manually. That should be fully automatic. And I do see problems with that, because how is an average flight simmer or an entry-level flight simmer, whom this product is tailored to, supposed to be able to find a manual ILS frequency? I tend to say most of them do not have a Navigraph subscription, so the airplane should certainly be able to automatically tune an ILS. Apart from that, speed management on the approach, well, again, in my opinion, not correct. Flight model as well, not correct. So there is a lot of open items there that they need to do. I am going to submit detailed feedback on this to the developer, hoping that he is going to be able to fix all that stuff, and hoping that he's going to be able to fix all that stuff soon, because the way I see this right now, I don't see how an entry-level flight simmer would be able to complete a successful approach with this. The average flight simmer, or the average entry-level flight simmer, I should say, in my opinion, highly relies on automation and on getting aircraft to the ground more or less automatically. They needed to be able to fly the star, maybe fly direct, and they need to have their VNAV in order to get them down. But none of this worked in this aircraft. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and do the after landing items. After landing checklist, radar and predictive wind shear off. After landing checklist complete. Okay then, left until November 8, and we'll go and pick the next stand on the Westhof. That's how they call this area of the airport here in the real world. If you get a feeling that I'm rather quiet right now, then yes, I sort of am, because I'm thinking about how to give this the final rating, and it's leaving me a little speechless right now. I know this is an airplane that's tailored for, you know, tailored for entry-level simmers, so I'm not expecting any high-fidelity systems here, but what we are seeing is, well, stuff that I consider basic for entry-level simmers. Like entry-level simmers, it's superb that the airplane has the ability to automatically fill out most of the FMS through that EFB import button. That's exactly the kind of functionality we're looking for in a product tailored towards entry-level simmers. But then again, the fact that the autopilot is completely broken. I mean, look at that, it's still showing as rollout. Like, we don't even have flight directors on. The fact the autopilot is completely broken just means that for now, if I was an entry-level simmer, and I had no idea what I'm doing, just to call it like that bluntly. If I had no idea what I'm doing, and I would be relying on the automation, then, well, this plane would not get me anywhere. I would end up completely frustrated, because it just wouldn't get me where I want to go. And that is what entry-level products should be focused on. Okay, we'll just park it over here. So, APU avail, lead on. So, cuatro, tres, dos, uno. Cabin crew, all doors in park. So, this is what I meant. Standby pumps off first, and then primary pumps off. Or main pumps off. Okay, and here we go. Parking checklist, please. Park and brake or trucks. Brake set. Engines off. Fuel pumps off. Parking checklist complete. And there we have it, my friends. Our first flight in the LatinVFR A340. So now comes the hard part. The one that is about giving the plane a rating. Now, let's start that way. When I first flew the LatinVFR A330 Neo, half a year ago, it was actually an okay airplane. It got me where I wanted to go, based on basic system functionality, so as advertised. But this one does not. The A330 back then was capable of doing a standard A to B flight. Flight dynamics weren't perfect, but they were open to some input from me, and ultimately they patched it a little bit. It still was nowhere near perfect at the end, but it wasn't intended to be. For the kind of product that it aimed to be at the market, it was an okay product. Now, let's talk about the A340. The A340, during the pre-flight procedures, you see I gave a little bit of input there, and overall, in general, it worked fine. Let's forget about that little pushback issue. That was maybe due to GSX, maybe due to the Aerosoft tool, even though I'm wondering why the standard tool in the EFB didn't work, but maybe that got messed up with just activating GSX previously. I'm not 100% sure about that. But let's talk about anything that came from the takeoff. Basically, the autopilot completely messed up. It was completely broken. The only thing it did after a while, remember initially it did not even follow the route after we gave ourselves that first little direct, because the user waypoint we had there was offset from our extended runway center line. It looked like the user waypoint was more on 26 left than 26 right, but going back in the video, I'm 99% sure I entered runway 26 right for the departure. So that should not have been messed in first place. And I'm not sure if it was the direct that broke the system, or whatever it was that broke it. But for some reason, the autopilot just did not work. And that's just all we can say about it, because the FMA was incorrect, the behavior with the flight directors on or off was incorrect, the climb and open climb, respectively descent and open descent modes were not working, and even the vertical speed mode wasn't working correctly, in that the vertical speed shown on the FCU and the vertical speed shown on the FMA and flown by the plane were different from one another. That means the autopilot is basically unusable in this aircraft at the moment, because literally no mode works except for the heading mode. Not even the approach mode worked, in that the glide slope mode simply never engaged. So basically, all I can say is the autopilot is non-existent in this aircraft. It simply doesn't do anything that is commanded except for flying a heading and a localizer. But that is all that worked on this entire flight, heading and localizer. The rest of it, non-existent. As I explained during the taxi-in, in my opinion, thinking about what is needed by an entry-level flight simmer, thinking about what a product should be capable of doing for somebody who is new in the flight simulation hobby. They need the airplane to be able to fly along the magenta, or in Airbus case, green lines. Basically, the Airbus needs to compute green lines that get you from A to B without much user input. You know, take off, have your climb and your nav mode, have the airplane follow the SID with those, and remember, VNAV is advertised to be working in this aircraft. So have the aircraft follow the SID, have it cruise, and when you get to the top of descent, the user just needs to be able to dial in the platform altitude for the ILS, go into descent mode, and then fly down on the ILS. And the airplane should basically automatically get the user down to the final approach fix at the correct speed, at the correct altitude. From there, the average entry-level simmer needs to be able to activate approach mode, and activate and have the airplane follow the glide slope and the localizer, and then fly down to a nice ILS, disconnect the autopilot somewhere close to the minimum, and do a manual landing, or even have the plane land automatically. Is the LatinVFR A340 capable of doing that? No, not even remotely close. And well, it somewhat reminds me of the Flight Sim Studio Embraer first release, where nothing worked on the autopilot. But we do have to say that the LatinVFR at least works in a lot of other parts, like the electronic flight back is mostly doing what it's supposed to do. It does have those shortcuts to programming the FMS, so there is a little bit more stuff there. You can certainly see that they are trying to get the airplane tailored for those entry-level simmers and trying to get it to work like that. But we do have to say that many of those advertised features, such as VNAV, such as good flight dynamics, are just not existent in the airplane at this moment. And well, I do think that is all the feedback I can give right now. So I'm going to write a detailed email to the developer detailing the issues and making some suggestions on how to improve it. And thinking back to my experience with them when they gave me the A330neo to test, back then I made a pretty good experience with them. They were very open to suggestions and to corrections, and quite some of them actually made it into the product. So I'm positive that this is going to be the case here as well. But for now, all I can say is that the A340 definitely does need some updates before I would recommend it to the average entry-level flight simmer. And I think that's really all I can say about it. So right now, would I recommend to get the LatinVFR A340? No. Am I hopeful that in the future they're going to correct many of those issues and the airplane is eventually going to become what it is advertised to be? Yes, I pretty much am. And well, I think that's the best feedback I can give on the A340 right now. There are some good things in there, like good modeling, and they do have a good cabin. They do have an EFB that has a couple of good features, but many of the things that are advertised are actually not existent in the aircraft yet, and that is really something they need to correct, and they need to correct quickly. In my opinion, they should just take it off the marketplace again, stop selling it, fix it, and then put it on sale again. So that's going to be my feedback for this video. I do hope that you enjoyed this one, even though it didn't exactly go the way we envisioned it to go. Nonetheless, I do hope that you enjoyed it. Be sure to give me your feedback in the comments below, and I'm very much looking forward to your comments. With all of that, nonetheless, if you did like the video, and if you like what I'm doing on this channel, then please do leave a like on YouTube and consider subscribing, as it does really help out the channel. Finally, if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Hope that you've enjoyed this one, and I see you all again on the next one.